Hi there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to Reading Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Today we're looking at Chapter 7, which continues Book 1. The question last chapter was what we dealt with, kind of Aristotle's critique of Plato's The Concept of the Good. Now we're continuing he's continuing to the next idea in the sense of which is the question of what happiness, the question of what happiness was, what was the good life, what was the purpose of, we have the idea that all the arts and sciences aim at some good, and what is that good in that sense? And we're continuing this next chapter, and it continues us on this the introduction of the theme here. He goes, "Let us go back again to the good being sought, whatever it may be." So we're going. It's again. We in other words, in many sense, chapter 6 was a digression, dealing with responding to the Platonic Aristotle's critique of his teacher Plato's the Platonic view, which is this idea of the good, right, the forms in that sense. So, what is the good that we're being aimed here? For it appears to be one thing. It appears to be. For it appears, in other words, it appears to be one thing in one action or art, and another in another. So it appears to be one thing in one action or art, the good that's being sought, and it's another good thing when it's another in another action or art. For it is a different thing in medicine and in generalship. Okay, let's go here. Generalship. And so on with the rest. So it's again this idea that what is the good is it differs from one action or one art even. The art of one art aims at a different good than the other one. It's a different thing in medicine and generalship, right? And the rest. What then is the good in each of these, or is it for, or is it that for the sake of which everything else is done? So what then is the good of each of these things? Or is it for the sake, the reason, the sake of which everything is done in that sense, right? Now he says, in medicine, this is health. In general, it's victory. In house building, a house. And another would be something else. But in every action and choice, now there's every action praxis, every action and choice, it is the end involved. It is the end involved. The good is that it is the end involved. Since it is for the sake of this that all people do everything else. So therefore, in every action, every choice, it is the end, the telos, at the end of some action of do everything else. As a result, if there is some ends, is there some end or telos of all actions? This would be the good related to action. And if there are several, then it would be these. So there's what is the end? What is the purpose of action? What is the purpose of action? Is it one thing or is it many things? And if it's many, then it's these things that are the good, right? He says. It would be these. So as the argument proceeds, it arrives at the same point. In other words, it's the purpose is what is the thing it's directed towards? What is the goal or the purpose? This is the good in that sense. This is the thing. But one ought to try to make this clearer still, so we should become clearer. Since the end appears to be several, so it says that it appears to be several, and some of these we choose on account of something else. For example, wealth and elos. Now, elos is double instrument. In other words, a double reed instrument, not unlike the modern oboe. The noun here is plural in the Greek, right? The elbos, the elos, wealth and elos. Um, uh, double reed instrument. That's odd. So he brings elos. And the instrumental things generally, for example, wealth and elos, and the instrumental things generally, it is clear that not all ends are complete. By complete, now 37 is perfect, teleos. Now this is the complete or perfect, right? The adjective is related to the noun telos, suggests that it is perfects itself, perfect, or reached, or fulfilled the end or the goal appropriate to the given thing. So, okay, that not all the ends are complete or perfect. They perfect themselves, achieve themselves. But what is the best appears to be something complete. In other words, again, teleos, something complete. The end is that um, the the best one, the best end is something that fulfills itself. In other words, some ends don't fulfill themselves; they do something else. They not itself, but achieve something else. Here, this highest end is the end that does it for itself, right? It's reflective in that sense. As a result, if there is some one thing is that is complete in itself, this would be what is being sought. And if there is several, then the most complete of these. In other words, if there's several, then what is the one that is you compare? Which is the one that is the most complete in that sense? Okay, so if everything points to one thing, then that is the thing that it completes itself. But if, in other words, would if one thing it is complete in itself, this would be the thing. But if there's several, which one is the most complete, right? We say that what is sought out for itself is more complete or more perfect, complete than what is sought out on account of something else. And that what is never chosen on account of something else is more complete than those things chosen both for themselves and on account of this a further end. In other words, okay, therefore the things that he's saying that okay, the things that are done. In other words, things that are done on their that complete them. So the end that completes itself, that it's for itself. This is higher than those that are done for something else. And those that are both complete for itself and that are they're like between these two. This one is said to be higher than this one, right? The simply complete thing, then, is that which is always chosen for itself and never on account of something else. So this is it is only chosen because it is for itself. Eudaimonia, happiness, above all, above all, seems to be of this character. For we always choose it on account of itself and never on account of something else. Yet honor, pleasure, intellect, I think that's nous, and even virtue, arete, we choose on account, we choose on their own account. For even if nothing resulted from them, we would choose each of them. But we choose them also for the sake of happiness, because we suppose that through them we will be happy. But nobody chooses happiness for the sake of of these things, or more generally on account of anything else. So, in other words, here at this point, it's at 1097b one to B B7. He gives the argument for the happiness in that sense. Why happiness is this highest end, this highest goal. And he's going to be saying that, okay, this seems to be the kind of argument why we're doing what we're doing in that sense. Why are we And that these other goods, he's saying, honor, pleasure, intellect, and even virtue, we can choose them on their own account, but they also help us to be happy. We choose them also, we do them also to be happy, whereas we rarely become happy in order to do them. Okay, this is that. No one chooses happiness for the sake of these things, or more generally on account of anything else. The same thing appears to result also on the basis of self sufficiency. For the complete good, self sufficiency, this is Tacos, I think. Yeah, I don't want to get this right. Self sufficiency. I should have my glasses. Yeah, autarkia. Autarkeia. This is that one key term in Aristotle's understanding of what is meant by the term happiness. Right? In itself. It's self act. It's self actualizing in that sense. It's self. In other words, for the complete good is held to be self sufficient. We do not mean by self sufficient what suffices for someone, what suffices for someone by himself, living a solitary life, but what is sufficient in respect to parents, offspring, a wife, and in general, one's friends and one fellow citizens, since by nature a human being is political, a political animal, right? Human being is political. So therefore, this is not about solitary life. Self-sufficiency does not mean self-sufficiency. Autarkia does not mean what is sufficient for oneself, but in order to live, a human being living his life in and understanding that life is with others. It is not a solitary life, but what is sufficient in respect to with your parents, with your offsprings, with a wife, in general, and one's friends, one's fellow citizens, because man is a political animal in that sense. But it is necessary to grasp a certain limit to these. In other words, we have to grasp a certain limit to these. This for if one extends these to include parents of parents, descendants, and friends of friends, then it will go on indefinitely. So therefore, in other words, it's in other words, we have to limit. There's a limit to what is sufficient, self-sufficient, and these goods that are self-sufficient in that sense, right? There must be a limit. There must be a shared. I mean, and this is why it has to be within the polis, where it has to be within a community. It has to be within a defined community, yes, and not to all things. Parents, like this. Um, the additional phrase not present in the manuscript, but seems in order to make the consistent with this. This is suggested by Rousseau and accepted by Burnet and Gautier and Joyleaf, right? That this is of parents, right? Including the parents of parents. The descendants and friends of friends. He says, as for the self sufficient, we posit it as that which by itself makes life choice worthy and in need of nothing. Such such is what we suppose happiness to be. Now, 39, and some ministry at this point, and sufficient, otakos, or self-sufficient and sufficient or choice worthy. Alkanon. I think this is supposed to be. I think they're choosing not to ignore some manuscripts add and sufficient. Kai Arkan, or therefore sufficient and choice worthy. Um, this is why there's this different manuscript tradition that makes life sufficient. So this, I think that's right to drop it in that sense. For it is for the self sufficient, we posit what makes choice worthy and in need of nothing, and such is what we suppose happiness to be. Further, happiness is the most choice worthy of all things because it is not just one among them, In other words, it's the most, because it's not just one thing among others. It's because, and it is clear that were it included as one among many things, it would be more choice-worthy with the least addition of the good things. So that even if it was, it isn't not, it is the highest one. But even if it was a thing, it was combined with other things, it would be more. It would be better. It would be more complete than the other ones, right? And it would not be, and that were included among many things. It would be more choice worthy with the least additions of the good things. For the good that is added to it results in a superabundance of goods. And the greater number of goods is always more choice worthy. In other words, if you add goods to it, it's superabundance, and therefore that's always like this. So happiness appears to be something complete and self sufficient. It is its being an end of our actions. But perhaps saying that happiness is best is something manifestly agreed on, whereas what is still needs to be said is more distinct, is something more distinctly. In other words, what is still needs to be said more what it is needs to be said more distinct. So we all agree that happiness is best, but what is happiness, right? What happiness? What is happiness? What is happiness? Right? We have this has to be said more distinctly. Now, perhaps this would come to pass if this work of if it sorry it not this work, but to pass if the work of the human being should be grasped. So that this is now ergon, right? 40 work ergon. This would come to pass if the work of the human being should be grasped. What is the human? For just as in the case of a altus player, a flute, like an oboe player, right, a sculptor, and every expert, and in general with those who have a certain work in action, the relevant good and the doing of something well seem to reside in the work. So too, the same might be held in the case with the human being. If in fact there is a certain work that is a human being's. So is there some kind of work, ergon, that some kind of work, some kind of activity or action, work, ergon, that is unique to, that is, what is it? That there is a certain week that belongs to a human being, okay? That is a human being's work activity, right? There are then certain works and actions of a carpenter and a shoemaker, but none of a human being. So in other words, women, there are certain works and actions of a carpenter and a shoemaker, right? There are certain things that they, but none of a human being. Would he if in other words, are there then certain actions of that, but none of a human being? Would he by contrast be naturally without work? This is argon or argon, literally without ergon, a work, a task, or function, and so by extension, idle. Right? This is that sense. Is he naturally without work in that sense, or just as there appears to be a certain work of the eye, a hand, and a foot, and in fact that each of the parts in general, so also might one posit a certain work of the human being apart from all these, the specific of the parts? Is there a work or, as he says, a work, a task, or function? Or there might one posit a certain work of a human being apart from these, the parts, right? The activities of the part. So whatever then would this work be? So what is this work? For living appears to be something common even to plants. So therefore, living, being, this existing, being, is even plants are, right? But what is particular to human beings is being sought. So even though living is something animals do and also plants. So what is unique, what is particular about human beings? What is the activity that human beings do? One must set aside then the life characterized by nutrition as well as growth. So therefore it's just that is common. In other words, that's not unique to human beings. All life has that, unique to growth in that sense, right? A certain life characterized by sense possession would be next, right? But it too appears to be something common to a horse or a cow, and in fact, every animal. So sense, in other words, sense perception. No, it's not only sense. So it's not mere existence, not life itself, and not sense perception, sense perception, because those animals do that. So there remains certain activity, a certain active. In other words, there remains a certain active life of which possesses. Sorry, a certain active life of that which reason, possesses reason, logos. In other words, there is. In other words, it's not. It's possessing reason. That there is certain activity of life of that which possesses living reason, possesses reason, and what possesses reason includes what is obedient to reason, on the one hand, and what processes possesses it and thinks on the other. So therefore, it is what it is. Now, this is the animal capable. In other words, this is what we have is what possesses reason, is capable of reasoning. So this is that famous Hume's distinction. Swift, the animal, not the rational animal, but the animal possessing or capable of reasoning, right? Capable of reason. And that what possesses reason includes what is obedient to reason on the one hand, and what possesses it and thinks on the other. So obedient, and then one thinks. But since this, the life of reason in the second sense, is spoken of in a twofold way, one must posit the life of that which possesses reason in accord with an activity. For this seems to be something more, to be its more authoritative meaning in that sense. Now this is the subject of the sentence unclear. This is footnote 42. And we supply the immediate preceding referent, the life in accordance with the part of the soul that possesses reason and thinks, right? Of this part, there is both activity and a characteristic. There is both an activity and a characteristic, hexis, right? And as Aristotle will argue in chapter 1:8, happiness consists in activity or use rather than mere possession of a characteristic. Burnet recommends dropping the immediate preceding phrase, which distinguishes the two parts of the soul. He argues that the phrase interrupts the argument and destroys the grammar. On his reading, the referent would be simply the active life of that which possesses reason. So this is one of those pains in the ass sentences. And therefore, he says this is why they have to put those extended things. And so, therefore, this idea, this twofold sense, and therefore, we should look at for this way, the authoritative meaning of it is more one must posit the life in accord with the activity, in accord with reason in that sense. And this is the authoritative meaning. And if the work of a human being is an activity of soul according with reason, just continue. We get interrupted for a second. My wife was at the door and came in. And if the work of a human being is an activity of soul in accord with reason, or not without reason, we assert that the work of a given person is the same in kind as that of a spoudios, serious person, just as it would be in the case of a cathila player. And a serious cathila player is the one, and this would be so in all cases simply when the superiority in accord with virtue is added to the work. For it belongs to a cathedra player to play the cathedra, but to a serious one to do it well, beautifully in that sense. So therefore, he's using a metaphor. The cathedra player, the mere cathedra player, is knowing how to play it. You play it, but a spudaio cathedra player does it well, does it perfectly, that exercises it in the most, does it beautifully in that sense, does it well. Um, um, this is why the cathedra is a plucked instrument, tortoiseshell sounds. Again, spudaios, serious in that sense, the first appearance of spudaios in the text. The serious spudaios human being is characterized by the correct devotion to an exercise of moral virtue, a virtue in that sense. Although Aristotle extends the term to anything that does its own work well, including horses and eyes. So in other words, it does its own work well. It's serious about it, does it well. The idea of spudaios is something serious. It does it well. It does the work well in that sense. It does what it's what it's doing seriously in that sense. Let us continue. But if this is so, and we posit the work of a human being as a certain life, and this is an activity of soul and accompanied actions accompanied by reason. The work of a serious man, spudaios, being to do these things well and beautifully, nobly, kolos, kolan, and each thing is brought to completion well in accord with the virtue proper to it. If this is so, then the human being becomes an active. Then the sorry. And if this is so, then the human good, becomes an activity of soul in accord with arete, virtue. And if there are several virtues, then in accord with the best and most complete one. So this is where we go to the question of studying virtue. So the serious person, the serious budaios, the one who does the thing, who does what he does well. This is going to be the life. In other words, a serious would be, in other words, if we posit a human being a certain life, and if this is an activity of soul and action accompanied by reason, then the work of the serious man is to do these things well and finely and beautifully, right? To do well, to do these things well and nobly, kalos, beautifully, right? And each of these things brought to completion in accord to the arete, the excellence that is proper to it. If this is so, then the human good becomes an activity of soul in accord with virtue. And if there are several virtues, then in accord with the best and most complete one. So if there's many virtues, what is the best and most complete of virtue? And this is going to be the quest, right? But in addition, in addition, in a complete life, if one so but for one swallow does not make a spring. In other words, nor does one day. So a complete life is for one swallow does not make a spring, nor one day, right? And in this way, one day or a short time does not make someone blessed or happy either. So therefore, this is like the complete. In other words, it has to be a complete life. You can only, and actually, this is that famous line. You ever until they've lived their whole life, never judge someone happy, right? That's the famous Solon line, right? But in addition, in other words, let let the good have been sketched. Okay, let the good have been sketched in this way. Then, then, for perhaps one ought to outline it first and then fill it in later. So therefore, we're going to say, wait a minute. Let the good that has been sketched this. Let the good have been sketched in this way. Then, for perhaps one ought to outline it first and then fill it in later. So we're going to look at the good. We're going to. This is he's saying we've done it. We're going to fill it. This is the outline. We've outlined it. We outline it first, and then we fill it in later, right? It might seem to belong to everyone. In other words, it might seem to belong to everyone to advance and fully articulate things whose sketch is in a beautiful condition, a noble condition, and time is a good discoverer of and contributor to such things. For this has arisen. From this has arisen the advances in the arts too. For it belongs to everyone to add what is lacking. So therefore, time will. So let's do the outline, the sketch of what is the nature of the thing itself, the good, and what happiness is in that sense, the good thing, and what is the good life in that sense, and let it get filled in later. And because what will happen is that if the sketches in a beautiful, a good colon fashion, noble fashion, a beautiful fashion, and time is a good discoverer of or contributor to such these things. And because what happens is that's going to be filled in later, and this is what happens with the advance of science over time and experience. We get the advances in the arts because of this. For it belongs to everyone to add what is lacking, right? But one must remember the points mentioned previously as well, to the effect that one must not seek out precision in all matters alike, but rather in each thing in turn as accords with the subject matter in question, and insofar as it is appropriate to the inquiry. Okay, so therefore we have to be careful. Remember, this is a warning now. We have to be careful. Yes, the sciences add more and more stuff to it, but we must always understand the precision in this matter will always be subject to the thing we're talking about, right? And subject matter insofar as appropriate to the inquiry. For both carpenter and geometers seek out the right angle, but in a different way. The former seeks it. The carpenter, seeks it insofar it is useful to his work. The latter seeks out what it is, or what sort of thing it is. For he is the one who contemplates, theorizes. This is where 46, the observer or spectator, thithe. The term was related to the word translated as contemplation and contemplative, theoretike, theoretiki, or theoretikos, or the contemplative. So therefore, this is theorete, right? Theoretiki. Theorizes the truth. One theorizes the truth. This is theoretike, one who contemplates the truth, or theorizes, or thinks about the truth. One ought to act in the same manner. One ought to act in the same manner also in other cases, so that things extraneous to the work involved not multiply. So we have to be careful. We should ought to act in the same manner regarding this, that we don't go beyond. We add extraneous things extraneous to the works in question involved, and not multiply the works involved. To the works involved, not multiply the things extraneous. They don't multiply it. Don't multiply it in that sense. One ought to act in the same manner also in other cases, so that things extraneous or beyond the work, be extra to the work, to the works involved, not multiply. And one should not demand the causes in all things alike either. So we shouldn't always demand the. But this is very interesting. He says, in other words, we should not demand. One should not demand the causes in all things alike either. Rather, it is enough in some cases to have beautifully pointed, nobly pointed out that, in other words, pointed out the that. Such is the case with a certain. Such is the case in what certain concerns the principles, and the that is, and the that is the first things, RK, and a principle. Some principles are observed by means of induction, some by perception, some by habituation, some by a certain habituation, and others in other ways. So in other words, what are the RK? What are the RK here? What are the things, the first things? And what are the principles and first things? Some principles are observed. So 47 is again to be held, right? Theorenai, to be held, to contemplate, to be held. Some things are to be held or observed, he says. This is a translation. And other by means of induction. This is a technical term of logic. Epagogue, right? Induction. And some by perception, right? One ought to try to go in search of each thing in turn, and in turn in the matter natural to them. So you should search for each in turn, and in turn in the natural manner to them, and to be serious, budaios, about them being beautifully, nobly. So nobly, I think beautifully, cologne, defined, beautifully defined. So we should go about in the search of these things in their natural manner. What is fitting towards it? What is correct? What is fitting towards it? We shouldn't go. We shouldn't go excessive. We shouldn't try to get excessive or demand to know more about it than is fitting to it. Right? The manner of it. So we should search and turn in the natural manner. We should go about in the natural manner to them, and to be serious about them being be, be, beautifully defined, defined. For they are of great weight, serious. In other words, that's why they're serious in that sense. They're a great weight. They're great important. They're a great weight in what follows from them. There is a significance in what follows from them. And the beginning, the RK, right? The RK, the beginning, it's also principle, right? The beginning point. The beginning, the RK, seems to be more than half of the whole. Again, this line. The beginning is more than half of the whole. And many of the points being sought seems to become manifest on account of it. So therefore, this is that a thing that the beginning, the RK, the beginnings, the RK seems to be more than half of the whole. And many of the points being sought out come to be manifest because of it. And that's this is kind of making a joke at the same time. He's making a point. He ends it on this point. That therefore the question is we have to understand the thing, the causes of something. The RK. What is the beginning point? What is the starting point? What is the principle of it? Right. This is that the RK has this like beginning point, starting point, principle, rule. Right. This is that the beginning, the starting point, the beginning point, the initial thing. This is the RK in that sense. The beginning point is to be half of the whole. Great thing. The line. Start the RK. And he says, and many points being sought seem to become manifest because of the beginning points, right? So we ended here. So if you have any comments, questions on this, what we've done so far in the question here, please put them in there below, and I'll respond to them when I see them. If you have any, if you liked it, like it, hit the like button, share it with your friends, share it on social media. If you've not subscribed, please do subscribe. Encourage others to subscribe, like to grow the channel or something. You can always see the other things I've written on, if you've only seen this the first time and seeing this, You can see my Aristotle's politics things. You can go visit my various playlists where I've gone over books in political theory and that stuff. If you didn't, now of course, you didn't like it. I didn't like it for some reason. Say why. But say in the comment what you didn't like about it. What like we could do better. Maybe this is a way we can learn in that sense, right? You want to follow me on my social links. You want to follow me on social media. My links are below. Social media links. If you want to know more about me as a scholar and as an academic researcher, you can follow below the social media links are the academic social media links, which goes to various academic social media sites to find out more about me in that sense and follow my research. And then the other thing you can do is if you want to help me to do what I do, you can do so through Subscribestar, Patreon. You can do that. I don't think it's not going to whatever. I want to do that. Another way you can do so is by buying one of my books that are listed below. Well, that's it. Next time we'll turn to chapter 8. 8 out of 13, because remember book 1 is 13 chapters. 13 chapters. So that's where we stop off. Again, have a good day. Take care. See you again when we next time when we turn to chapter 8. Bye-bye.